So on the back side of this second worksheet on graphing parabolas, on the back side, the answers aren't there. We actually have notes, examples, and more practice problems specifically on transformations. Now remember, transformation is the way the original parent graph changes to the new graph that you have, right? So to describe a transformation from the original parent graph, from that regular U-shaped curve on parabolas to the new graph, whatever it may be, we must go through each of these possibilities in this order. So the first thing you ask yourself is, does it open up or does it open down, right? If it opens down, then you say it gets reflected over the x-axis, right? If the a value is negative, it's going to get reflected over the x-axis. I know we say, oh, it opens down, but using the correct math vocabulary, you would say if the a value is negative, it gets reflected over the x-axis. After saying that it got reflected over, if it opens down, then does it get vertically stretched or compressed? What does that mean? Does it get wider or narrower, right? And also by what factor? I know that sounds confusing, but the factor just means by what number. It's the a value. That's your factor. So if the a value is closer to 0 as a fraction less than 1, then it's going to get wider. That's called a vertical compression. It's wider. But if the a value is further away from 0, like let's say your a value is 2 or 3 or even negative 3, if it's greater than 1, then it's a vertical stretch, which means that it gets narrower. Okay? And it doesn't say that in your notes, so might as well jot that down in that little space, put down in parentheses, it gets narrower. So obviously if your a value is further away, if the a value is further away from 0, then your parabola is going to get narrower. And that's what we call a vertical stretch. So a vertical compression is when it gets wider. A vertical stretch is when it gets narrower. And then number 3 is describe the translation. That's a fancy word that we use instead of shift, but I am going to use the word shift. I don't want to get too fancy. Translation means shift. And you describe that either left or right shift, and then the up or down shift according to H and K. You do the H first, you do the K second. Okay, so let's take a look at what type of question you might see on the test and what types of questions you're going to see right here on the homework. It says, describe the transformation from f of x to g of x, where f of x is x squared, the parent graph, and g of x is this new one that you don't even see. So first things first, does it get reflected? Yes, it does, because a value is negative. So you would say, first transformation, it gets reflected over the x-axis. Second transformation, does it get wider or narrower? It gets narrower. And what's the fancy words we're going to use instead of it gets narrower? It gets vertically stretched by a factor of 2. What the heck, factor 2? That's because the a value is 2. It made it narrower. Okay. So when you see the words by a factor, don't freak out. It's just whatever that a value is, that's going to be the factor that's getting stretched by. And finally, after you said that it got reflected and it got stretched by a factor of 2, then you move how many units? 4. You shift 4 to the left or to the right? To the right, and 6 down. You think opposite of here and take K for what it is. So 4 to the right and 6 units down. This is the complete description, and you have to write it out in words, and it's 3 parts to describing how the parent graph gets transformed to the g of x function. Okay, so you have to go through these notes right here. First, ask yourself, does it get reflected? If the a value is negative, it gets reflected over the x-axis. And then ask yourself, is the a closer to 0 or further away from 0? If the a is further away from 0, it gets a vertical stretch, which means it gets narrower. If it's closer to 0, it gets wider, which means it's a vertical compression. And finally, at the very end, describe your shift, left or right, up or down, according to H and K. Do the H shift first and the K shift second. Let's look at example 2 right here. It says, describe the transformation from f of x to g of x, where f of x is the parent graph, f of x equals x squared, and g of x is 1/4 x plus 1 squared. So does it get reflected? No. So what's the next thing we state about a? Does this get wider or narrower? It gets wider, which we're going to call it gets vertically compressed. That means wider, vertically compressed. How does it get vertically compressed? By that number, 1/4, by a factor of 1/4. Okay? And then after that, after it gets wider, what happens? You shift it where? 1 unit to the left. It says right there, then it gets shifted 1 unit to the left. This is a 2-part description of the transformation. So what you guys are going to do right now, for the remainder of class is work on these guys. So let's go through this one together. What's going to be the first transformation? So let's go through our thought process here. Does it get reflected over the x-axis? No, because the a value is not negative. Does it get vertically stretched, which means narrower, or compressed, which means wider? No. The a value is 1. It's a nice, beautiful, regular U-shaped curve. Does it shift left or right or up or down? Left. Okay, so we're going to say shifts. Whoops. Shifts. I put shits. Oh my. Should I delete that from the video? No, okay. It shifts to the left. Now, if you're explaining this to somebody, you'd say, it shits. It shits. Oh my gosh. I need to go to the bathroom. If you're explaining this to somebody, you would say it shifts. What? Shifts to the left because you think opposite on H. If you're explaining it to your partner or you're teaching somebody, you're going to tell them, oh, the H values are left and right, but you have to think opposite. The K values are up and down shift. So that's the only transformation on number 1. Okay. Let's jump to something that's more challenging. I put 2 what?
2 3s and 2 4s.
2 3s and 2 4s?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's horrible. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. There's going to be 5 over here and 6 over here. Yeah. Change that to a 5. Change that to a 6. Which one should we do? 5 or 6? Let's go for the hardest one. 5. So looking at number 5, which used to say 3, sorry. How does the parent graph f of x change to this new graph t of x? So what are the transformations? Let's first begin using our notes. Does it reflect over the x-axis? So let's write that down. It reflects over x-axis. What does that really mean if you're trying to explain it to somebody that it reflects over the x-axis? Instead of opening up, it opens down. Okay, but the correct vocab that we're using here is it reflects over the x-axis. And then we move on to the second thing that the a value tells you. It tells you whether it's wide or narrower, right? Wider or narrower than the original parent graph. So what do you guys say? Is this going to be wider or narrower? Wider. It's closer to 0, which means it's going to be wider. Now, what does that mean in terms of a vertical stretch or a compression? A vertical compression. So you would say, then it gets vertically compressed by what? By 1/2. Perfect. Now, of course, if you're explaining it to somebody, you might even want to put this in parentheses. Vertically compressed means it gets wider, right? But I'm going to be looking for this word and that word, vertically compressed instead of wider. Okay? What else? So we already said that it got reflected. We already said that it got wider, which is vertical compression. What else could we say? Is there anything else? Yep. The third thing would be the shifts. Emphasis on the F. Shifts. So where does it shift? Shifts left 3 units and up 4. Ta-da! You explained in words how the original parent graph is transformed to this new one. And guys, this skill right here is great because if you ever take a multiple choice test and they tell you which of the following parabolas is this equation, well, you'll just be able to eliminate the ones that open up. You'll eliminate the ones that are narrower because this is definitely wider, and you'll be able to see your vertex right there. So just by knowing all this stuff, you'll be able to answer questions instantly if they were multiple choice. Should we try another? Or you guys got it? One more? Let's just do number 4 here. All right. So what do we say? Number 4, does it get reflected?
No.
Definitely not. So what else do we say? You always start with your a value. If it gets reflected, no, it doesn't. Okay, does it cause it to get wider or narrower? Narrower, because the a value is further away from 0. It's 2. It's further away from 0 than 1. So it gets narrower. What do we call this, though? What kind of transformation vocab words do we want to use? vertically stretched. And you know what? We could put in parentheses narrower. Narrower. Dang, that's horrible. Vertically stretched, and let's keep going by what? What does it get vertically stretched by? By 2. Right? It gets vertically stretched by 2. Okay, what else could we state? We already stated it didn't reflect, it stayed, it got stretched, it got narrower. And how about the shifts? Shifts 4 to the right. I forgot units, sorry. And 6 units down. Ta-da, easy peasy lemon squeezy. So this will be on the test Friday. I hope we understand it, and it'll become very useful in the future when we go into parabolas deeper in this class, and also future math tests that have multiple choice parabolas on there.